Hi, good morning and a warm welcome to CryptoMetalResearch.com's election special. What we're going to do today is look at the gold, silver and cryptocurrency market and see if we can predict where they'll go over the next few days and weeks. It's particularly difficult in this current situation because of the political unrest that's going on in America and the likelihood of rioting if people don't get the way they want. That's been seen all over social media. But from our perspective, what matters is the macro global picture, what's going on with the pandemic, with the money printing, and how this impacts the markets that we're interested in. So let's take a look. We've got the graph here of the dollar, and what's fairly evident from first review is that it's in a downward channel and has been going back into early April time where the dollar hit 103. It's yesterday just bounced off the top of this channel and is quite strongly heading down. Now obviously the next few hours and days are going to be extremely volatile for all markets, particularly the dollar. I can't predict where it's going to be, but if we get a decisive result, then that could add quite a degree of strength to the dollar and have an impact on metals as well. So I don't expect that to happen, but let's look at it anyway. So looking at the price points on the dollar, you've got 94.73, which was the previous high. If it pushes through there, the next one is 97, and if we get decisive win, then we could be heading back up into that area. That would be quite a strong gain for the dollar. It's quite an unusual thing, but it could get up there, and that would have an impact on the metals prices. One of the things to say is that cryptocurrency being decentralized, we pretty much can forget the impact of the dollar to some degree on that, but gold and silver, particularly silver, will get extremely volatile. So the dollar has got bearing. Obviously, if it carries on weakening, it's got the bottom of the channel, which is well below 90, and I expect to see the DXY starting with a 7 in the next few months on the basis of weakening through stimulus, and that's another key political issue, that decisive win for whoever will give some benefits to get some stimulus out into the population, and that money printing will be great for the precious metals markets. So obviously we can't predict exactly where it's going to go, but be mindful of these levels. If it pushes down to 92, there's a bit of support there at the moment where it bounced before, sort of the mid 92s. Anything south of that and we could head quite a bit lower, and I think what could happen is an indecisive win or a lot of legal wranglings over the next few weeks, which would affect all markets and definitely the dollar. Okay, let's move on to the gold market now and look at the price action currently. Basically, it's been in a kind of last few days in an upward trend. It's in a bit of a downward channel overall, and it hasn't broken out of that. We're going to need to see a close above 1932 before we can go up to the kind of next area of resistance, which is near the all-time highs, sort of around 2000. I believe it's potentially going to go down and potentially hit sort of around 1790s, 1800, even if it wicks down, and that could happen overnight. I mean, we could see that definitely in the next few hours when the results start coming in. And once it's got a touch in this kind of area, I then think we will be definitely on target to be heading up to the all-time highs and above later in the month and into December, probably late December. I do think it's going to be substantially higher than it is now, but very volatile. So gold is, it's getting, obviously with the dollar declining currently, it's getting some positive wins. But yeah, that's pretty much gold. I think we're not going to know exactly what's going to happen until we get clarity on the decision one way or another who wins. Okay, looking at silver, we've got this pretty strong bullish flag developing, quite an elongated one because of the consolidation and sideways movement, which is the norm for silver after it's had a bull run. Obviously we've got the gold got to new all-time highs. That wasn't covered by silver. Silver hasn't got up to $50, although it's a matter of time, I believe, before that happens. I've done a Fibonacci retracement here, so we can see that we basically got 38.2, hovered around these kind of levels, which it's sort of touched into. Hasn't got down to the 50%, which I kind of feel that it needs to before it takes off again. And again, if gold in the next few hours, a couple of days, does have a down day with the volatility, it could wick down and touch that before taking off, but it doesn't need to actually. We could probably break out. We've had a few touches of the resistance line on this lower channel, and we're obviously heading back up there, but we're going to need to sort of get above the 23% fib retracement level, which is at 25, around 25.5. Close above 25.60 would make me very bullish, but we just need to see what's going to happen. Obviously a decisive victory, and I'll come on to this in a second, but looking at a Republican win with Trump would be very positive for the metals, and pretty much I think if it was decisive, would silver could probably take off from here, along with gold. Biden Democratic victory would be slightly good for metals overall, but for the miners it wouldn't be, and I'll cover that in the next section. But yeah, silver, like gold, same sort of position. We're just going to be waiting for direction from price action really over the next sort of 48 hours or so, and let's see if we get a decisive victory one way or the other. Okay, Bitcoin. Just looking at the bigger picture here, this is a weekly chart where we can see all the previous highs. What's immediately evident is we've actually got above the last high back in the 2019, around 13,800. We've gone above that, but we haven't closed above that yet, and we will need to have a close above 13,800 before it can push on, obviously. So we're waiting for that. It is in obviously a strong uptrend, and what's interesting about this bull market compared to the previous ones, it's a lot more mature. I mean, this is the first initial market rallied and took off in literally parabolic move, which was fantastic. It's obviously had this consolidation, sell off and gone sideways. It's had an attempt going up, but because of what's going on in the macro picture with corporate entities coming to the market like Square and PayPal, MicroStrategy, lots of other companies, and it being taken on board by JP Morgan and people looking at getting ETFs in, once the pipes are there for this cryptocurrency and all the others, and there's some very exciting stories out there that will make this look very interesting. We are all over this and very, very bullish. It doesn't really matter what happens in the election. This is a big story that's going to carry on. What may be interesting, just the thought, if we do have a Democratic win, because of the antitrust sort of legislation and they're going after the big tech companies, we've got to remember that the cryptocurrency is decentralized, and a lot of people may flock to this sector for gains and potential returns on the back of the heavily regulated Democrats. So that's one thing to bear in mind. But either way, this market is set to take off, and this particular crypto is the granddaddy of them all. And from previous work I've put out, and you may have seen, I am predicting this to be 2021 quite a sizable doubling, if not more, depending on what happens, and certainly over the next decade. It's got some extremely exciting potential for the future. But yeah, nothing to change here in our view. We may see a bit of volatility, but I'm not too worried about that. It's certainly a buy and hold asset. So if we go back over the last 50 years and look at what happened in elections generally, that's 12 election cycles on a 4-yearly basis. Some had double sittings, so that's Ford, Carter, Reagan, Bush number 1, Clinton, Bush number 2, Obama and Trump. And if we look at what the returns have been like from this work done by Kitco News over a 24-month period, Republican victories did slightly better than Democrats, over 36 vice versa, and over 48 is quite markedly different, that the Democratic performance of gold was markedly higher over the last 50 years than Republican. And that could be because of the cycles of gold, which I'll come on to, or it could be because the stock market was generally stronger, more favoured, obviously, in a Republican political party than a Democrat one. But you can't argue with the fact that gold bullion is going to do well at whatever time frame, and I think particularly in the next 12 to 24 months, because of stimulus, because of the pandemic, because of all the issues politically, globally we've got around the world, gold is well positioned to be very strong, and gold mining in particular, unless we've got a Democrat victory, which in America specifically, it will have an impact. But there's a lot of countries around the world that have mines, so it isn't always going to be an issue with mines just specifically in the American markets. So that's looking at the last 50 years in terms of performance. So in terms of gold as a market generally, looking at this monthly gold chart, and this is going back with the political parties when they were in power, and each individual going right back into the late 60s. Bear in mind that Nixon obviously took gold off the gold standard, the dollar off the gold standard in August 71. So initially there was a few issues back then, but that basically started off the bull market, which follows the same pattern that we've seen and I've discussed in previous videos in terms of the bull markets that gold has. And we hit the high in 1980 there, and then travelled slightly down sideways, forming a bottom in 99 for the second market, where we got another all-time high in 2011. That was in Obama's reign, and the 80s was in Carter's. So both Democrats, but there's actually the gold cycle, which I want to come on to, and that is probably got more bearing than who's in power and their policies. Okay, excuse the hastily thrown together graph. What I've basically wanted to do is just show roughly the, very poorly actually, but the gold's 8-year cycles are roughly running basically just before 2000 to 2009, and you tend to find a bottom at one end, rising throughout the cycle and then dropping down to a cycle low. It doesn't have to be the all-time low, but it's a low, and then it ticks off again, and then it hits a high, and then basically comes down again to form another cycle low. Now it did this back in sort of 2008-9 with Obama taking over in the election there. That was the cycle bottom, and then took off to the previous all-time high here, and then dropped back down through the cycle as it was turning over to a cycle low, and then began to take off again, which we're now in this cycle high, and we're coming up to sort of the midline of the cycle high about roughly in the next few months. So at that cycle high, it will then sort of tread sideways and move up, and I think come down again to the bottom of cycle low. But that cycle low will be a deal higher than we are now, before taking off again for the next cycle, which will be the parabolic move for gold. So we're going to see a decent return, I think, over the next cycle of presidency, whoever's in power, regardless of what's going on. We've got an awful lot of supportive evidence here, I think, that we are going to head a lot higher in the coming months and early 2 or 3 years. Okay, that brings us to the end of the US election special crypto metal market review. I hope you found it interesting and informative, and if it's something that you'd be interested in, or you want some knowledge and education in terms of the precious metals, energy metals and cryptocurrency markets, then head over to CryptoMetalResearch.com, where you can find out more. At CryptoMetalResearch.com, we have a number of services to educate and inform you on how to benefit from the financial reset in this massive bull market. We fully expect our portfolio to return multiple double digits in the huge financial reset we're going through. The risks are high, but so are the returns for those with industry connections. We have years of trading experience to support you during your journey. Our services include CryptoMetal Premier, a full done-for-you service for the time poor who see the massive potential of having your assets realigned to benefit from the next big investment boom. We do everything for you so you can sit back, relax and watch your assets appreciate. CryptoMetal Partner, a done-with-you educational service for those who want to be involved and learn how to benefit from this massive opportunity and receive signals of when to get in and out of your positions to maximise your profits. CryptoMetal Portfolio, a do-it-yourself solution so you can learn and apply the portfolio to your investments directly without any support or assistance. CryptoMetal Pulse, a signal service direct to your inbox as and when the market dictates, combining decades of technical analysis trading within your broader crypto metal portfolio. CryptoMetal Personal, a virtual one-to-one for those who want to know more, want to discuss their personal situation and investigate what CryptoMetalResearch.com's investor education can do for you and your financial wealth.